Welcome to this episode of Business PNG. The 33rd Australia Papua New Guinea Business Forum and Expo, recently held here in Port Moresby, brought together business and industry leaders from both countries. Discussions reflected the theme, navigating the cycle, creating opportunities in challenging times.
Last week, together in Port Moresby for the 33rd Australia PNG Business Forum and Expo. The theme of the forum, Navigating the Cycle, Creating the Opportunity in Challenging Times, reflected the current business environment. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill took a break from the election trail to give the keynote speech in which he welcomed the Australian delegates and assured them that despite the economic downturn, Papua New Guinea is still very much an attractive investment hub. The economy's dependence on the resources sector is well known. Prime Minister O'Neill made another call for expansion of PNG's alternative industries. He mentioned agriculture and tourism as key priorities in this regard.
The sectors in which we are now broadening our economy is we will be investing heavily in agriculture over the next few years. Papua New Guinea should be one of the most important food gardens of Asia Pacific. We have a great potential in this area, with millions and millions of hectares of fertile land. But we have never been able to utilize that land well. Instead, we import food instead of growing food ourselves. We must invest, and government is already partnering major firms in a range of areas in agricultural production, particularly in areas such as cattle, rice, and of course, other exporting commodities like coffee, cocoa, copra, and rubber. Today, as we speak, we are enabling agricultural investments in the Sepik, in Ella and Southern Islands provinces, down in Western Islands in the Baia Valley, of course down in Makam, and many other parts of Central Province. A dairy farm is now been built as we speak today.
The underlying factors behind a decline in revenue have barely changed, and indeed were the subject of much discussion in the 2017 budget hand-down in November last year. Regardless, Prime Minister O'Neill maintained his positive approach on the economy.
There is no doubt that past few years has been challenging for both economies as we weather the storm that is circling around us. While many commodity exporting countries have faced serious economic decline, Papua New Guinea has been able to maintain a positive growth in our economy.
Australian Minister for International Development and the Pacific, in her keynote speech, welcomed the continuous partnership between both countries, paying close attention at entrepreneurship.
And for me, now I've had quite a number of visits to Papua New Guinea and had the opportunity not just to visit in Port Moresby, but to actually visit out in different areas. And what I wanted to highlight in my speech this morning was the nature of enterprise that I have seen for myself in Papua New Guinea, whether it's the beekeepers up in the highlands, or whether it's the Wontok clothing company, or other businesses, Papua New Guinea Fruits and the various other businesses that are doing very, very well. Clearly, we are facing challenging times. There's no doubt about that. And what I tried to do this morning was look at the challenging times that both Australia and Papua New Guinea are facing, but also look to the future, the necessary work that needs to be done, even when in difficult times, to ensure that economies progress into the future. And so it's good to be again in Papua New Guinea, and good to attend this forum, which I think is getting bigger and better every year.
Welcome back to Business PNG. The business environment in Papua New Guinea is seeing an increase in the number of SMEs owned and run by millennials. Many in this group are outspoken entrepreneurs and are breaking social and cultural barriers.
A new generation of entrepreneurs has arrived, and they're already outperforming their parents. They are the millenniepreneurs, as a new survey puts it, And at just 20 to 35 years old, they're starting more companies, managing bigger staffs, and targeting higher profits than their baby boomer predecessors. Remarkably, the entrepreneurial nature of the millennial generation, those born between 1980 and 2000, have disregarded the life and career flowchart that was so formally laid out by their baby boomer parents. A panel at the recent Australia PNG Business Forum and Expo for the first time featured some bright faces from this demography, educated, tech-savvy, and well-spoken young members of society, breaking stereotypes and cultural barriers.
Why coffee? Well, coffee is one of those things, I guess, where you either hate it or you love it, and I'm one of the population that loves it. Coffee's, it's an acquired taste that you could probably compare to, say, wine or beer. It's one of those things that once you acquire the taste, there's no turning back, you're hooked on it. And I think coffee has also really reshaped the way that we do things these days. And due to globalization and westernization, people in so many countries these days, will go for a date or, meet up with friends or with family. And a lot of them do that over a coffee. Most of us here on the panel today, we've all grown up in Papua New Guinea, whether we were born here or and raised here. But I can say that I was fortunate enough to have gone to boarding school in Australia and to further on to university in Australia. And it's in Australia where I really found my passion and found specialty coffee. And it was in 2010 that I moved back to PNG to work with my family business. And one of my father's rules was that if I wanted to come back and to work in PNG, that I had to go to China first and study Mandarin. And once I learned some Mandarin, then I was able to come back and to help out with the family business. And I think it was in China that it really it opened my eyes to kind of starting something to do with coffee, just due to the sheer volume of people there, and also the lack of specialty coffee. And so after China, coming back to Papua New Guinea, I found a very similar trait here, where there was specialty coffee or coffee shops were non-existent here. So coming back here, I managed to convince my father to fund our first cafe, which was literally just a hole in the wall. And then, 5 years down the track, we've got 3 cafes here in Port Moresby now. And so I think the other thing is coming back to PNG and doing different things. I think being young, I think, is one of the traits that have helped and sort of fostered the way that people are doing things here now. Because I guess when you're young, you're kind of willing to try new things. You're willing to take risks, and also because of the fact that you have a lot less to lose when you're young. So,
from listening to the panelists that have already spoken, I think 100% technology is going to be a massive enabler to just all of the businesses so far. I'm just listening to Xenia talk about her plant-based products, and listening to Trav talk about the coffee, and then also listening to Amanda speak about how she wants to, essentially commoditize PNG culture and sell that as well. That the sky's the limit, and it definitely starts getting very interesting, this whole conversation about business in Papua New Guinea, when you take it in the broader context of what's happening overseas, and that's kind of where we're looking at it. Obviously, as I'm sure you guys are aware by now, I run a venture capital fund based out of Silicon Valley and here in Port Moresby, where we were incorporated in 2014, and we were one of the first to just be a pure play blockchain venture capital fund. So we only focus on that one technology, which at the time was a bit out there, but I think now that rationale has kind of come along, and people are seeing where we came at it from.
I think another barrier is the cultural barrier. Our way of life in Papua New Guinea is ancient, and it evolved to suit our environment. Change has come very quickly for us, and not everything from our pre-contact days is without value in contemporary Papua New Guinea. The more open you are to listen and learn from us about our culture, this is talking to the Australians in the room, the more you'll get from working with us here. Similarly, we Papua New Guineans must be patient and open to sharing our methods of doing things, or changing where there are benefits, because the world is changing and we are capable of change too, as we can see with the mobile phone being introduced. So I think talking about people-to-people relationships is just as valid as talking about power, ICT, and foreign exchange. And I hope to be here when our ease of doing business in Papua New Guinea our rates yesterday were discussed as Papua New Guinea is listed as 119 out of countries to do business in this country. And I think that I'd like to be here to see it raising to 20 or even better. Because there's a generation of young Papua New Guinean go-getters that are hot on our heels, and it would be a great loss to our development and our growth to discourage them from chasing their dreams in business because we didn't improve the business environment for them at this time when we have the power to do it.
Welcome back to Business PNG. A key trend surfacing in recent years has been the commercialization of Papua New Guinean culture, from the tapa cloth to woven mats and to the most symbolic, the Papua New Guinean bilum. The showcasing of aspects of our culture in galleries right around the world has now introduced the once untapped markets of Asia and Europe to our unique PNG culture.
Papua New Guinea is a land of diverse culture. From the highlands to the coast and further out to the islands, every region, every province, every tribe is unique, and the customs and cultures that accompany them differ significantly. The way a mat is woven in the southern region may differ to how it is woven in the Momase region, or the way a bilum is woven or knitted, and the material used differ exponentially from the highlands to the coast. At least until 2 decades ago, the country's international exposure was limited to niche markets, businessmen and women traveling, tourists attracted to niche activities like trekking and diving. And then the World Wide Web was introduced. Thanks to the web and the new global unity it brings with it, commercialization of indigenous culture is flourishing. According to a global organization, Strong Whispers, humankind is moving more towards a melting pot culture. People living halfway around the world can simply enter search on Google about how people in Kokoda, Northern Province, cook their food, or how a mother in Goroka weaves a bilum. Over the decades, the entrepreneurial spirit has driven Papua New Guineans to commercialize from our cultures. From craft markets selling beaded bracelets and necklaces, fans woven from palms, and purses and clutches made out of tapa, all organic, all Papua New Guinean. However, the challenge lies in moving from the craft markets to the international markets. And this is where organizations such as the Pacific Horticultural and Agricultural Market Access Program intercede. FAMA, as it is also known, works with the public and private sectors to promote Pacific exports of primary and value-added produce.
The PNG program is a bilaterally funded program by the Australian government only, and we've been going on in PNG since, actually started in 1st of July 2015, but the program actually got going in November 2015. So we are fairly young program, and we look at supporting ready-made or export-ready businesses, export Papua New Guinea-made products predominantly into Australia and New Zealand. We got a portfolio of about 5-6 projects. We work in cocoa, coffee, spices, coconuts, handicrafts, fisheries, and forestry. Yeah, and then we try and promote most of the products as possible. So that's one of the reasons why we're here. Yeah.
One business working under the Pharma umbrella is Maku Gifts. Business PNG spoke to owner Annette Sete about her largely popular Lava Girl jewelry and marketing her products overseas.
We sell predominantly to Australian customers, a wide range in Papua New Guinea, and we've got the Pacific as well. So a lot of Fijians, quite a few from Solomons and Vanuatu. But we've also sent orders out to, I think the furthest we went to is Germany. There's one to Germany and I think 3 to US to date, and a couple to Thailand as well. The good thing is that Facebook allows us to sell to markets that we won't necessarily sell to if we were to use traditional media to market our products. Facebook really helped us to get to areas where we could not necessarily have gone to. That's a good thing. The bad thing is that the freight cost is killing us, because we need to send there, and also if they were to buy in foreign currencies, Papua New Guinea doesn't have a pay platform to allow us SMEs or Papua New Guinea businesses online to sell, to accept foreign currencies online.
Like Mako Gifts, Pharma works with countless other small businesses, creating avenues for them to graduate in terms of market access.
It's a good opportunity where we're so thankful to Pharma, which had helped us to come out and expose our products here, because without them we wouldn't be out here. And also it has helped us to meet other people, like from the top level of work-wise, and people that are around the world that have come here, and they now know this thing that we tapa. They heard about it, but they don't know how it has been made into this. So now they know, and they've shown interest about these things, and also to know where Papua is located to us.
Another organization making waves by exposing our culture, and specifically the bilum, is the Bilum Export and Promotion Association. BIPA has stepped in recent years as an enabler of sorts. The organization was formed as part of an economic empowerment project through the exports of handicrafts funded by the Australian government and managed by the International Trade Centre.
BIPA started off, BIPA is currently a project that is managed by the International Trade Centre, which is part of the United Nations, and funded by the Australian government. So what BIPA is all about is where we're looking for, through export and trade, we want to economically empower the women around the country that make bilums. So with that scope of work, we've set out to identify where these bilum weavers are around the country. So as you know, there are bilum making regions, and then there are basket making regions, but PNG is just rich with handicraft. But we've decided to focus on bilums first. When this project started off, like the ITC does through their Women in Trade program, they do projects like this in countries like Papua New Guinea. So they've got, they've finished up a project like this in Cambodia where they work with the women in the silks. So they find what the women are doing already, and then they go in and they try to see how they can, through export and trade, find markets for them outside, because sometimes the markets are saturated locally. So what we do is we go out, we identify where these women are, and then we organize them into cooperatives, get them registered with IPA, and then we work with them to improve. The training includes, we go and train them to not make bilum, because obviously I didn't know anything about that, but to improve the quality of their bilums and to understand the international market, basically.
The association works in cooperation with women in rural areas across the country who don't have access to any markets, but to whom weaving is second nature. To date, BIPA has worked with 12 cooperatives of 650 women.
A lot of them haven't been in a classroom setting before, and it's a mixture of things, spending 2 or 3 days. Sometimes we plan for a two-day training session, turns into a 4 or 5 day one. And we have to be flexible enough to do that. But they're very receptive. When we go through, first, some of them are like, bilum school, what are they going to teach us to do? Like these people from Mosby that don't know anything. One of my main trainer is actually Florence Jaukai, who is well known for her bilum textile and her work in bilum. She's just a trailblazer for bilum, basically. And so she commands a bit of respect in herself, so BIPA's leveraged off that a little bit. So she trains the women on the technical aspects. I come in and explaining what BIPA is and what BIPA can do for them in as simple terms as possible so that they can understand and be comfortable with us representing them and their products. But the women have been, like, when they understand that this is what we're going to do, they've received us very well. They've been, a lot of them tell us this is an answer to their prayers.
Ms. Gawi recently returned from the Pacifica Festival 2017 in Auckland, New Zealand, where she showcased the bilums unique to Papua New Guinea.
And that's it for this episode of Business PNG. As always, if you'd like to view this episode again, log on to the website on the address now showing on the bottom of your screen. For the up-to-the-minute updates on business in PNG, you can check out our Facebook page as well as our Twitter account. Look for the handle @Business PNG. Until the next time, I'm Merabatulo, and this has been Business PNG.